Hi. So we're continuing our learning of Mishnah Berachot. We're up to chapter 7, Mishnah Daled 4. We were just learning about the zimun and who's involved in it and the different numbers and different things that are said with different numbers. And now we're talking about whether or not people can break off into separate groups when they are a group that's joined together for a zimun. So let's hear about that. Shlosha she'achlu ke'echad einan rasha'in lechalek v'chen arba'a v'chen chamisha. 3 people who ate together are not permitted to separate, and so too for 4, and so too for 5. Shisha nechalakin ad asara, ve'asara einan nechalakin ad shihiyu esrin. So 6 may separate up to 10, but 10 may not separate up until there are 20. So what is this all about? This has to do with the numbers that are required for certain things to be said within the zimun. So to make the regular zimun, you need 3. To make the zimun with God's name, we need 10. So if you have only 3 people, people need to then bench together. And then we said if there's 4 or 5, they need to join together to bench if they ate together. 6 may separate, because once you have 6, you could have 2 groups of 3. You don't have enough to have a group of 10 where you can do the additional words of mentioning God's name. So the same would go for 7, 8, 9. But then when you have 10, you have to stay together if you ate together as a group, because otherwise you would be missing out on the opportunity to say those additional words. And that goes for 10 through 19. But then when you get to 20, you could have 2 groups of 10, so then you could break up and have 2 benchings. That would be allowed, but it's not permitted to break up when you're therefore going to have a lesser status of what you're allowed to recite. Okay, so that's number 4. Now moving on to number 5. Hey. Shtei chavurot shehayu ochlin b'vayit echad. So if there are 2 groups who are eating in one house. Bizman shemiksatan roin elu et elu, hare elu mitzrafin lezimun. So when some of them can see each other, some of them from the different groups, then they may combine for a collective blessing. Ve'im lav, if not, if they're not able to see each other, elu mizamin le'atzman ve'elu mizamnin le'atzman. And so if they're not able to see each other, then these say their blessing and these say their collective blessing. So what does this mean? If you 2 groups are at 2 different tables, if one person from each group is in sight of another person from the other group, then they can join together and be a greater collective. And if not, let's say they're in separate rooms, you can't actually see other people, then they should bench separately as their own collective groups. Then this Mishnah goes on to something else, something about wine, which is something specific to wine during Mishnaic times. But let's hear that. Ein mevarchin al hayayin ad sheyiten tocho mayim, divrei Rabbi Eliezer. V'chachamim omrim mevarchin. We do not recite a blessing over wine until water is added to it. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, but the sages say we recite the blessing. So this is a question of whether it has a drinkable status. In their time, the wine was very, very strong. The way it was made, it was like a concentrate was made, and then water would be added to it. More parts water than even the wine concentrate. It was that strong. So it's a question of whether you should say the blessing, or whether you could say a blessing before it was diluted, because it's like technically maybe for the overwhelming majority of people would be undrinkable at that point. But maybe there's some people who could, or some people would enjoy that. Or is it still an elevated status from more than just grapes to something wine-like, fitting of the bracha of Berei Pri Hagafen? So those are the different opinions and questions. And the sages, so the majority opinion, is saying that you can say a blessing on the wine before it was diluted. It still has the status of wine, even though it's maybe not drinkable to most people, and still needs to undergo this process of adding water to it. Okay, so that's a little bit different than our zimun, but that was part of the same Mishnah. So that's the end of chapter 7, and we'll continue with chapter 8 of Berachot next Wednesday. Okay, thank you, and everyone have a great day. Bye.